And as I said,
well, you're fantastic in the film.
Well, likewise. I mean, that was a great scene that we just saw there.
I'm just joshing you. Dan.
Once again, from the studios of UNO Television on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, consider this, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
We have a basic principle. We do not leave anybody wearing the American uniform behind.
President Barack Obama responds to the U.S. government's decision to trade 5 Taliban prisoners for a U.S. Army sergeant. Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, the Bergdahl Swap. Joining us to talk more about it are UNO's Tom Gutierrez, Dean of International Studies and Programs, and Paul Landau, Assistant Professor and Internship Coordinator in the Political Science Department. Thank you both for being here. Welcome.
Nice to be with you.
Tom, I think to really understand what's going on here, it's important that we rewind about 5 years to the beginning of all of this. Can you take us back and tell us what was going on at that time?
Well, I think our military was trying to re-establish itself and its strategy and its whole set of practices in Afghanistan with the introduction of a surge that was intended to attack the insurgent groups in Afghanistan that were coming in primarily from the outside and causing so much disruption and setting back much of what had been accomplished in the very early years after we came in and joined with the Afghans after 9/11. And so, under the leadership of Stanley McChrystal and others, we were bringing in, new kinds of troops, a larger amount of troops that would be kind of strategically and surgically striking at spots that were deemed very problematic. And so, the numbers of our soldiers coming into Afghanistan at this time had then increased to an all-time high.
Okay, and let's take a look at a map. We do have one we want to put up for our viewers, and if you could just kind of walk us through in terms of...
Well, the areas where most of the problems were going on would be in Afghanistan along the Pakistani border, so that's the border to the right on the map on the screen. And so the area, though, where the surge was starting out is in the area which is right above the term Registan down towards the bottom of the map and in the Margao Desert area. So, but that whole southern tier going up towards the eastern borders of Pakistan was and still remains where most of the actual battles against those insurgent groups that come into Afghanistan, largely having taken refuge and having received training and supplies in Pakistan.
Okay. And Paul, the Taliban captures Sergeant Bo Bergdahl, right? Before we talk about that, if you could just maybe talk about this man, especially in terms of his military background. We'll go ahead and put some video up so our viewers can see, but share a little bit about him.
Okay, well, he's young. He's about 26, 28 years old, and he originally was from Sun Valley, Idaho. He's been misidentified as a Mormon. He's not. He was brought up as a Presbyterian. He was homeschooled by his parents. He did not graduate from high school, but he did earn a GED. He originally joined the Coast Guard, but for some reason that remains unclear, he was discharged after about 3 weeks. Then about a year later, joined the Army, graduated from the infantry school at Fort Benning, and was deployed to Afghanistan.
Okay, and that brings us then up to speed here in terms of when he was captured. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, he apparently walked away from his unit during the night. The Pentagon did a report several years ago which indicated that he simply disappeared. He wasn't captured in the traditional sense of a battlefield capture. So once he was in the hands of the enemy, then things slid downhill quickly. And for the last several years, the Obama administration has been maneuvering to try to get him back, finally culminating in this prisoner exchange. The one thing you have to remember is that there's only 3 ways to get a prisoner back during war. First way is to win the war. And of course, in an unconventional war like that in Afghanistan, the likelihood of that is not good. The second way is to go extract the prisoner militarily, a rescue mission, so to speak. Dangerous, difficult, even under the best circumstances. Third way is to effect some sort of a prisoner swap. We've got some of your people, you've got some of ours. Let's exchange them and we'll both walk away happy. That's what the Obama administration decided to do.
Right, and not being received very well from the majority. Could be in part because we don't understand exactly how all of this shook out. But there's an act, right, in Congress that President Obama was to notify folks 30 days in advance, and that apparently did not happen. And so we do have some reaction now that we want to go ahead. Let's roll the tape and hear from them.
Republican Adam Kinzinger of Illinois.
We heard nothing except continued excuses about why they didn't come to Congress. I didn't get any good answer as to why 5 high-ranking Taliban were traded and why that was a good deal. And so I think people probably are leaving there even more disappointed than they walked in. So.
Democrat Jan Schakowsky of Illinois felt the ends justified the means.
I am completely mystified and quite frankly disgusted that there has been a demonization of the soldier. Every American deserves to be considered innocent until proven guilty.
But the Congresswoman said the public should reserve judgment until Bergdahl tells his side of the story.
So, Paul, your reaction then to that?
Well, the act that they're referencing is the National Defense Authorization Act. It was enacted last year, signed into law by President Obama. It calls for a 30-day advanced notification if the administration is intending on moving prisoners in or out or around Guantanamo. These 5 prisoners that were exchanged for Sergeant Bergdahl were at Guantanamo at the time, so some say that this act, the notification portion of this act, should have come into play. But it's considerably more complicated than that. The act was intended to give the president some flexibility in moving the detainees from Guantanamo and allowing him to do so if he gave notice. But the Constitution also says that the President of the United States is Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. And the Obama administration is arguing that under the Constitution, the President would obviously have responsibility for the safety and well-being of American troops around the world, and that it's under that theory, a constitutional theory, that they believe they've acted lawfully in making this exchange. There's been argument on both sides of the issue. Some saying, well, the language of the act is clear, you're to give 30 days notice, and you didn't. Others saying, yes, but other provisions of settled law and the Constitution make it quite clear that the president has to act on some things in an emergent way. Finally, I would say that the fact of the matter is that in the United States, we give the executive wide berth, particularly on foreign affairs and national defense and security. And that's as it should be. The president needs to be able to act without the encumbrances of going through all sorts of bureaucracy. And that's what he did in this case. Now, you know, how it will all shake out in terms of the legality of it all, we'll see.
Right. So would you say there was a precedent set here then in terms of him acting the way he did? No.
No. What I would say would be that generally speaking, in national security issues, the president acts and acts quickly and decisively. And that's probably the way we want it, at least in most cases.
So for those people who've kind of doubted President Obama in terms of some of the decisions that he has made here in his time serving as our country's leader, what would you say to those folks? Because I do think that there's been a precedent with him set with certain people. So how do you respond to them?
Well, I say that every president takes actions that people in the other party disagree with. That's what representative democracy is all about. And as you can see, the primary opposition in this case comes from the Republicans. That's as it should be and as expected. When George Bush was in office, the primary opposition came from the Democrats. It's politics, it's American diplomacy, and it's simply the way a representative democracy operates. No problem at all as far as I can tell.
So where do you see things going from here? I mean, we're still pretty early on in all of this, so give us some perspective in that regard.
Well, I think in terms of the domestic politics of it all, it will continue on to be an issue as long as the Republicans believe they can get some mileage out of attacking President Obama, and likewise, as long as the Democrats feel they can get some mileage out of saying we got an American soldier back. When it stops becoming an issue is when it runs out of political steam. And that probably won't be until after next year's election.
Okay, Tom, jump in. I'm seeing you nod and...
Well, you know what I think about it? I mean, I think in many ways this is a media political matter, an issue that people kind of strap onto when there are political opportunities. I think the most important event that is upcoming is the election in Afghanistan that will transpire on the 14th of June. And when people watch this, that will have been completed. And that will have more impact on what's going on in terms of our interests in Afghanistan, and of course have more impact on Afghanistan's future than this particular case. But like Paul said, I think this will remain in the media as long as it has political steam.
I want to talk with both of you for a few minutes about the media and the role it plays coming from your respective backgrounds, international, political science, of course, because some of the feedback has been that obviously we're all only as good as what the media tells us. Do you think that overall in stories, especially big stories like this one, it's been fair, it's been forthcoming, that type of thing? And now I'm talking more in broad strokes, but pertaining to this story as well. Paul?
Well, a couple of things there. The first one is that anytime the media covers a breaking story, there's going to be errors, there's going to be things that need to get back at and corrected. It's the only possible way, because things are happening quickly, reports are coming from the field, there can be inaccuracies. That's no problem as far as I'm concerned. The real issue to me is the reporting accurate? And ultimately it will be. And in this case, I believe it pretty much was. I don't see any problem here with the media, and I'm not one to blame the media when they're simply reporting an occurrence. Mm-hmm. If someone needs to take blame for something, it would be the administration for the way they handled it. Some believe they handled it inappropriately, others don't. And that's no different than any other issue in American politics.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Well, I think a free society, it really is very, very dependent upon the media. I mean, because that helps to keep everybody informed and I think active participants in their society. When we don't have that, when we see that in other places in the world, it's very evident that the society is unable to move forward in the way that we need in civil societies so that people are participating in their own future. So I think the media as a small m and is absolutely essential to a free, democratic society. I think what we all need to question is where are we individuals getting our sources of information? From which areas in the media? If we're getting it from the talking heads, then this is not information that is unbiased or is objective. It's not a good source of news or information, whether it's done in humor or if it's done by those who are carrying their particular agenda forward. So I think I kind of regret that I think there's an awful lot of our fellow citizens who don't use the more objective elements of the media in getting their news. In other words, as informed analysts, citizens, it'd be better to get it from the wire services that have a long-term ethical reputation, from public television and public radio. I think these are very strong examples for our society to utilize. Many of the private networks do an excellent job of covering the news, so long as they stay out of the editorializing. Editorializing is important as well. It helps people to think, it helps to stimulate people to think, but people need to understand when someone is giving his or her opinion or his or her own editorial, whether or not that is his or her agenda and whether it is really helping to inform each of us about what has happened.
Well, and as long as we're on this topic, Tom, talk to us. Is there anything that is apparently or blatantly missing from this particular story in our 30-second clips that we see that is important for us to know and to be able to take away as we move forward?
There are two things that I've been waiting to hear about. One, of course, what was it that Sergeant Bergdahl did? How was it that he left the base, and how was it that he was out of the base walking around, or whatever it was? Some people say he deserted. Some people say he was going out to actually try and be in contact with the very people that he wanted to kind of serve in a way by joining the military. And that's the other point. That is, there are many American military with whom we've had contact, and we have a lot of contact here. We do a lot of training of American military, their orientation programs. We've done 47 different groups here about Afghanistan. Many of them come to us for training who are going back to serve in Afghanistan, who have been there, and who, when they get here, lament that while they were in Afghanistan for their 9-month tour, whatever it was, they didn't get off the base once. Or if it was that they did get off the base, it was in a combat situation. So the thing they regret most is an opportunity to have had some kind of contact with the average Afghan citizen in that country in which they're serving. So was Sergeant Bergdahl trying to do that, or was he leaving and going off the base for another purpose? So I think we need to understand the context of what some people may wish to do. As a military person, you're supposed to follow certain orders, but there are also individuals who I think sometimes have a certain sense of wanting to make contact with those folks that that they feel they're trying to help by their service in their country. I'm not saying that whether that's right or wrong, but it's a context that will have to be, I think, figured out or at least revealed before we can make any conclusions on what happened here.
And to Tom's point, he's absolutely right. Regardless of what Sergeant Bergdahl did or didn't do, the circumstances of him leaving the base, we don't leave American soldiers in combat zones as prisoners. You get him back, you don't make a judgment on him until he's back, and once he's back, you investigate, and then if charges are warranted, you charge him, and you try him through the Uniform Court of Military Justice. But you don't leave him there because you think he may have done something wrong. He's still an American, he's still one of our troopers, and we've got to bring him back one way or the other.
What are the repercussions? Because there's a lot being said out there in terms of that actual swap. So we get him back, but in exchange for, so help us with that. Let's go to the other side for a minute.
We need to understand that some of these people who were released have been under guard in some way or another for more than 10 years or so. They're going to go back after a year in Qatar. None of those elements or organizations with which they may have been associated when they were captured are in the same kind of situation that they were in when they left them. So we can't predict that they're immediately going to be going back and engaging us again. However, we need to also understand that we have many heroes in our military history that we laud who escaped from prisoner of war camps or escaped somehow, and then were again brought back into combat. So that's not uncommon for people who are released. I understand people being concerned about someone who has been responsible for the deaths of others, but in the end, we don't know what they are because we haven't defined them as prisoners of war, as detainees, or enemy combatants or whatever it is. But in the end, setting the semantics aside, they are prisoners of war. And when wars come to an end, those prisoners of war, are eligible for repatriation, and we are as well. And so, as Paul indicated, that war hasn't come to an end. We haven't won, so we're in a situation just like we were in 1960 when Francis Gary Powers came down in his U-2 plane. We did a swap with an individual, and he came back. And so, some people think maybe 5 is more. I think an American soldier who is serving is we don't count the numbers that are exchanged. We should be pleased that we have that individual back.
Right, and Paul, it's that old adage, walking a mile in somebody else's shoes. I mean, what is life going to be like for this man? Paint a picture of that. I think it really helps for the two of you to be explaining things the way that you are to give us a better understanding. Kind of walk us through the road ahead for Sergeant Bo Bergdahl.
Well, I think it remains to be seen to a large extent. But to Tom's point, and adding a little context, Israel would trade 1,000 prisoners for one Israeli soldier. Sharon did. I think one time, what was 1,200 or 1,300? I mean, it's the bottom line is, Sharon said, I can't sleep at night knowing that I could have done something to get that boy back and didn't do it. So I think that's what was on President Obama's mind, frankly. He wanted to get him back, period.
And he had the opportunity.
And he had the opportunity, and he took it. Now, to Bergdahl's life from this point forward, it's not going to be easy. He's been painted as somewhat of a demon or a bad guy, and whether or not that's true remains to be seen, and whether or not he can repair that image also remains to be seen. But I think a lot of it will depend on what the military decides to do with him. They'll continue the investigation, they'll make a finding. Whether they charge him or not will matter. If they exonerate him, that'll be that. He'll have to rebuild his life. If they charge him, of course, it'll be a whole nother story.
You were going to say.
Well, and I think we can take a look at the history of individuals who have gone through the process of being a prisoner of war and who have been released. It is very, very traumatic, their lives thereafter, and it in many ways dictates the way they think about everything, whether they were missionaries in Lebanon who were released, like Terry Wade or something of that nature, or indeed people like Francis Gary Powers. He was always Francis Gary Powers, the downed U-2 pilot, and some people question about whether or not he wasn't too open about his captivity and things of that nature, or what he was doing, and so people tend to make judgments, but those who make those judgments haven't been in those shoes, and I just hope, quite frankly, whatever the circumstances, he went into the military. He's now out of the war zone. He's been released. I hope he can come back and find some measure of life with his family, and not be hounded by the situation, right or wrong. Enough will surely be enough sometime.
In the couple minutes we have remaining, Tom, moving forward, the U.S. and Afghanistan.
Well, again, I mentioned that the most important thing is the election on the 14th of June. We will see now in the next couple of weeks the inauguration of the new Afghan president. We know that whoever was elected, and it will take a while actually to tabulate all the votes, has indicated that he wants to sign the base agreement with the United States. I think there'll be a new kind of political, social almost relationship between the U.S. and Afghanistan. There'll be a change in the environment, maybe the dynamics between leaders, and I think we'll probably find that some of the numbers that we've been discussing as kind of hard and fast right now will slip and slide, because there'll be new kind of assessments. One, we take a look at what's been going on in Iraq recently, civil war there, as a result of the way we left. We don't want to make mistakes in the way we leave Afghanistan.
Okay, thank you. I think we said it, only time will tell in this story and so many others. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here and sharing your time and expertise. We appreciate it very much.
Thanks for inviting us.
Good to be with you.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching. We will see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or email us at considerthis@tvmail.unomaha.edu.